All right, so the audio started. So do we have your permission to record audio?
You do. You have my permission to record audio.
Thank you very much. And then could you just, for our records, state your name and your job?
Sure. My name is Nick Yager. I am the co-owner of Gusano's Mexican restaurant in Lebanon, New Hampshire.
All right, so I was looking at your guys' website, and it says you guys you're still doing curbside pickup and delivery right now. Is that right?
That's correct. Yep.
So is that like shift? What does that change meant for you?
Well, it's been a dramatic shift. Normally, our business is probably 90% or so dine in. We are a pretty busy restaurant with about 100 seats. We average, last year we did just over 1.9 million in total revenue, with about a 23% liquor mix, meaning total alcohol sales to include beer, wine, and liquor. The balance then is food, with a small portion of that being takeout. Of course, the day that the shutdown in New Hampshire was announced, we shifted to only curbside pickup and also initiated delivery, which was something we hadn't done out of this location with any seriousness at all. Really quite some time. We had played around with it years ago, but mainly did that out of another location that we had. So it was a complete change in dynamic. Initially, we laid off probably about, I think it was maybe about 7 people, not to include part-time teenagers that were working here. And we quickly ended up rehiring the vast majority of those folks. We've kept, I think, 4 people laid off, 3 of whom are medically, they have strong medical reason not to work, and 1 who has family commitments that it's better for him if he doesn't work. But other than that, we've rehired everybody and actually gone out and hired additional personnel as well.
So has business sort of been stayed more or less the same?
Well, no. I mean, overall business volume has decreased, but the shift has been, pretty dramatic as far as operationally the changes. We went from averaging probably about 36,000 a week in sales to initially, I think we probably did 13 or 14,000 the first week, but now we're up into the mid 20s on average. Although it's still very new, so everything's fluctuating. Yesterday we did about 2/3 of the sales that we did today. So it's just dramatic fluctuation day to day. But all in all, the volume's adding up to make it, very sustainable anyway.
Yeah, I still imagine that's got to be pretty stressful for you.
Yeah, it's a whole different operation. Packaging, producing food to go is very different than plating food for in-house. It's actually quite a bit more labor intensive to produce it to go. So both sides of the line for production, you have the cook side, and then you have what we call the expediting side, are significantly impacted because of the to-go packaging. So on the cook side, we're producing things very differently than when we're doing stuff on ceramic plates and skillets and such. Now everything's packaged. All the sides that would normally be on the plate are all packaged separately. So it's just a whole different operational challenge on that side of the line. And then on the expediting side of the line, where you would normally you would hand a ticket over when the food is ready, and the servers would run the food out to the table. Now it's another whole labor-intensive project to take all of that food that's been packaged to go, to complete the packaging, and then to bag it or pack it into a box or pack it into a delivery bag, and then to orchestrate getting it out of the building, either bringing it out to somebody's vehicle or sending it out on a delivery. So a lot of our folks that previously worked as servers are now working as expediters, to-go specialists, and delivery drivers. So it's a very different job for them, but it still encompasses the same general, different skill set, but it's based on the same, customer service based drive and component that they would normally have going for them. So but it's very, very different. It's folks that used to make whatever it is, $3.27 an hour plus tips are now making $9 an hour plus tips. But all in all, I think they're making more money right now, to be honest with you.
So as far as like the process of making the food and delivering it, are any of the employees taking any extra precautions, wearing gloves or masks, like for the delivery drivers?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, any guest interaction that we have, if somebody's walking up to pick up their food from the building, we have tables outside that we'll set the food on, and then they'll pick it up from that table. Our servers that are running food out, which are now the to-go specialists, are all wearing masks and gloves when they're going out to either car side or to deliver the food to the table. And we've been doing that for a couple weeks now at that level. Delivery drivers are wearing gloves and masks also. And oftentimes, some folks, I guess, depending on their situation, will have us leave the food outside their door. But you see you see people still that are trying to just minimize this whole event and make it a non-event. And you almost have to fight them off so they don't come up and give you a hug. You see both ends of the spectrum. But yes, to the precautions.
And so with like when you're interacting with those people, both at work and out, is that a big stressor for you?
Not particularly. I'm probably not I'm not a person who gets stressed easily. I'm ex-military. I did well in the military. I've been doing this pretty much ever since I got out of the military back in '95 in one aspect or another. So the only time that I get stressed really is when we're not producing at the level that we should be. Interacting with people doesn't really stress me out. But I suspect that for other folks it could. Sometimes when we get people, we have in front of our restaurant now, we have a patio fence that we've put up, which, it's a wrought iron fence that's about probably 3 feet high, 3.5 feet high. And then we created a gateway, and we will have folks that will walk in the gateway still, even though we have signs outside that say, please wait here. So you do see that happening from time to time. I'd say it's, once or twice a day where somebody is just totally oblivious to the fact that we've, put that up, and we'll ask them to step back outside. And again, we're not bashful about it.
Are they usually pretty understanding?
Usually they're pretty understanding. Yep.
That's pretty good. Are your staff handling well?
Yeah, our staff's fantastic. We have a very dynamic staff. They're used to a lot of, change and fluctuation normally. And it's a very young staff, very young at heart, but also currently very young, as our older folks that work here have, are some of the people that are immunocompromised or live with someone who's immunocompromised. So, they're pretty energetic and very dynamic.
So that sounds like actually a really nice thing to have, it sounds like you guys are pretty tight knit.
Definitely. And it's a decent sized staff. We normally run about 30 people, including my wife and I, about, it's 37 to 40 people that work here. Right now, I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. I think we're probably in the mid 20s right now with total staffing. But once again, most of the people who aren't working here are either teenagers that were working, 2 or 3 shifts a week at most. And we've actually retained 2 of those folks since they're not in school. We've got a 15-year-old who was saving for driver's ed, and she's making more money than than any 15-year-old should be making right now. And then a 16-year-old who's also still working with us, who does some delivery, and he's doing pretty well also. But yeah, they're a pretty tight-knit group. They are very honest with each other. There's not a lot of pettiness that's hidden, if something is going on, especially since we have to adapt so quickly, and we've really just restructured everything. All the systems have changed. Everything has changed system-wise here. There's remnants of the old systems in place, but nothing is the same. And the side work has changed. I'm watching right now as one of our dynamic young servers is portioning salsas. So, we're a Mexican place, so we do chips and salsa with every order. Typically, I think we probably set up for any one day, I don't know, maybe enough salsas to do 20 to-go orders. And right now we're setting up just, hundreds of portions of red salsa and green salsa daily. So it's, and yet they've adapted to all of this. It's very nice to see. And the point of sale system has changed completely as well. We're using online ordering now. We're trying to encourage people to prepay for their orders. with credit cards. So everything is different from one end to the other.
And you're doing that change with the point of sale just to keep things more sanitary?
Well, that slightly, not that's not a big change for us. So we've always, for about 4 years, we've used iPads at the table, not where our guests have them, like Chili's or someplace like that, but the server, instead of writing down their order, they'll enter it directly into an iPad, which sends a ticket to the kitchen, so that it takes about 5 minutes out of the whole cycle, where the server would write it down and then go find a computer and type it in again. And so we've done that for years. But now, in the past, where we would hand the iPad to a guest to close their credit card on, they would swipe the credit card and put a tip in on it. Now, of course, the servers are handling all that over the phone or in person. So that's changed. We've switched to online ordering. So we never had that before, but we flipped that switch about 3 days after we went to this new standard of service. We turned on online ordering, and so we built that up so it's pretty robust and pretty user-friendly. And now I would say, I honestly haven't had time to measure the metric, but I would say we're probably at about 60 to 70% of our orders are now placed online, whereas people used to call in to place orders, or if it was a to-go, or we would take it in person. So that's changed dramatically. So we've had some bumps in the road with that, but all in all, it's been pretty good. So, we've tried to minimize cash, but it's hard. People's habits. Some people don't want to change. We had a $500 cash deposit yesterday, and $400 the day before, and $400 the day before that. So people still want to use cash, which I don't understand. But we'll take it for now. If things really blow up here, as I think Massachusetts is blowing up this week and next, if we start to see an increase, we'll probably go to strictly digital currency.
Yeah, and I think it's really impressive how much you guys have been able to change. I was trying to understand what that experience was like, seeing all these really rapid changes to your
well,
livelihood.
I think this right now is where this is a time where you have to make a choice as a restaurateur or a business person. If you are afforded the opportunity to remain open, first of all, you have to decide if you want to do that at all. We've seen a lot of restaurants just shut down. We had some restaurants locally that as soon as they heard that it was going to be to-go and delivery only, they shut down, and just, I don't know what all went into that decision, but a big steakhouse here shut down. They have a restaurant that's on Dartmouth campus that, I have no idea what their sales are, but it's in the tens of millions, I'm sure. They pulled the plug on that about a week into it. They shut down their steakhouse before they even tried. They shut down the other restaurant about a week into this, before things had even evened out at all. So, another chain that's up here called 110 Grill. I don't know if they have that around you, but they just never even tried. They shut down right away. A local pub chain, they have 5 local units. They stayed open for about a week, maybe 2 weeks, and then they pulled the plug. So we've seen a lot of places that tried, but I don't know if their food just didn't take well to go, or if it was just too much change for them, and so they figured they would just close their doors and roll the dice and see what happens. And then we've seen other companies that have changed, like Applebee's locally, which I used to work at Applebee's years ago, back in the 90s and early 2000s. My wife was actually the general manager of Applebee's locally when we decided to open up this restaurant. So Applebee's, they laid off their entire hourly staff and tried to run it with 4 salaried managers, which I don't understand, personally, why you would do that. These are folks who aren't used to working quite that hard. They were asked to do all the prep work, all the cooking, and all the guest service 7 days a week. So I don't know what they've done with that, but that was their attempt, and they're still plugging along, trying to do that. Pardon me for 1 second.
I forgot to turn the light off in the studio.
Oh, okay, I'll grab it. Okay, man. Thanks. Good night, Rich. So, so we've seen some half-assed attempts like that. And then we've seen other places that have just really tried to chase it, like we'd have as well, where we just decided we don't want to lay people off if we don't have to. We want to figure out how to let them work if they want to work. We don't want to force anyone to work, but if they want to work and make money, we want to give them that opportunity, as long as we can do it in a safe manner, where we're at least breaking even or bleeding to a level we can afford to, we're going to keep it going. And so that was our choice. And on the day when Governor Sununu announced that he was going to do the shutdown, we had a meeting with our entire staff, and we said, this is the way it's going to be. We're not going to lay down and, go quietly. So if anybody doesn't want to participate in this, come see us, and you can take the layoff. And we gave them the information immediately so they could get their unemployment paperwork filed electronically and get that done. And I said, but anybody that wants to stay and try this with us, stay on. And so all of our folks made choices, and those folks that decided that they wanted to stay on have just been 100% in. And like I said, that's the vast majority. And the folks that didn't stay on, they had really good reasons. One guy had a heart valve operation a couple of years ago, and another person lives with someone who's immunocompromised, et cetera. So
it still must have been hard to see them go, though.
Pardon me?
Still must have been hard to see them go, I'd imagine.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, we in 15 years, we don't lay people off at all. And even the number of people that we've fired for cause is very small. We'll try very hard to work with people. But on the other hand, for some of these guys, it was a better decision. I would not have felt good with somebody working here who's going to go home to a 72-year-old immunocompromised partner every day. That's not something that I want to be a part of. So I actually feel pretty decent about it. And, we follow up with them every week. When people couldn't get toilet paper, we ordered in cases of toilet paper and handed it out to staff from our food vendor. We do free employee meals for our staff that's not working, or the staff that's working once a week, that they can take home to their families. They can come in here and eat for free when they're working. And, so we've tried to do things to make life more bearable as well for the people that are laid off and for the people that are working. But yeah, it's hard, but it's one of those things where you have to make a decision. You either say, I'm going to go forward 100% and not look back, or I'm going to sit here and lament change and fight it. And I've just not been somebody personally, and nor is my wife, to sit and take that approach, because it really doesn't seem to get you anywhere.
Yeah, and actually, I was just wondering about that, sort of with I know restaurants get toilet paper, but have you had trouble with your supply chain and like shortages?
Yeah, we've had some issues. We've had to make some changes, but not much. Mostly normally we don't use frozen product at all. We're all fresh product, but we're too big and we're too busy to buy locally. We can't sustain that with local purchasing. So we use a distributor that's similar to Cisco called US Foods. They're quite large, and our orders come out of Albany. They've done very well overall, but there were some shortages along the way. They couldn't get fresh burger for a little while, so we had to use frozen product. There've been other little things. Produce quality and availability has fluctuated greatly, but even when they're not able to get it, we're able to find it someplace else, or they'll send a special delivery. Actually, we have a fantastic sales rep who drove to Albany to pick up cheese for us when it didn't show up on the truck one day. Albany's a long ways from here too. So, so it's a team effort. Our food vendor as well, in the beginning, we did not have, we were selling, like I said, $36,000 a week on average. That dropped to teens, and that, and then low 20s. So we did not have the cash flow to pay them in a timely manner. They worked with us. We diminished our payments to equal to what we were ordering instead of what we owed. And they worked with us. They couldn't have cared less, because they knew that we were in it for the long run. And now we're at a position where, because of the EIDL, economic injury disaster loan, we've been able to pay them in full and even pay ahead. So, but yeah, we've definitely run into some supply chain issues. Sanitizer, soaps, those types of things. We've had to struggle to find them. When we couldn't get hand sanitizer, we went to a local distillery, and they were making sanitizer by the gallon. So we bought a couple gallons of sanitizer so our employees would have those. Masks. Some local folks were stitching masks. My mother's made 20 or 25 masks as well and given them to us. And we also happen to have a box of surgical masks as well for temporary stuff. So those types of things. But anytime that there's been a speed bump, we've found a way around it. When our vendor can't get certain paper goods, we'll go to buy them from another vendor in Hudson, New Hampshire, and just pay to have them shipped up here. But we don't go without. We find a way to get it, whatever it is.
And I think that's a really a really good attitude to have going forward.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where, you got to make the choice. So you can't worry about how much you're going to spend right now. If you got to, like right now, tomatoes are $37 a case. They're normally about $18 a case. So it is what it is. I'm not going to pass that price along to our guests right now. We're just going to eat the price change. We use probably, I don't know, 12 or 15 cases of tomatoes a week. So we'll eat the price difference in that and other stuff. Nothing is cheaper right now than normal. Everything is a little bit more expensive for fresh food. And I think, with some of these closures of plants, like the pork plants that are closing, I know Tyson is closing a plant or two. I think Smithfield, if I recall, recently closed a plant. So obviously the price of pork is going to increase. And we'll just eat that as well for, what it is. But you can't worry about those things too much right now. We just got to focus more on not disappointing our guests and keeping our employees working.
It sounds like you're really on top of things as far as all this change. Has spending time working on your business affected, or taking time away from things in maybe your personal life, your day-to-day life? How has that changed?
Oh yeah, it's very different. I'm pretty much working 7 days a week to some degree. There are days when I'll come in a couple times and just check in if things are slower that day. But like today, I was going to go home. We were extremely busy tonight, so I ended up staying until 7:47. I looked down and that's when I checked your email. That's when I finished helping in the kitchen. And we had a full staff tonight. It's just we got extremely busy. We'll do 5,000. We're already over $5,000 in sales today. So to put that in perspective, on a typical Thursday this time of year, we would expect to sell about $3,800 to $4,200 in mix of alcohol and food. And today we're over 5,000 in to-go food alone. We're probably at like 1% beverage. Everything else is food. So we're busier on certain days than we would normally be. So yeah, it's put a huge damper on personal life. Haven't done anything around the house in weeks. I normally have a podcast studio and a YouTube studio that I play in. It's kind of my hobby. I haven't been in there. I've got people emailing me asking for updates on some of the YouTube videos that I've done, and I don't have time to do that at all. So that's definitely had a change of things. And of course, personally, with family and all that, we have a large family locally. We try to discourage them from getting together, although it's difficult. Not everybody takes this epidemic as seriously as others. So. But yeah, it's put a big damper on things, on family life and other functions.
Yeah, I can't imagine how the increase in workload must be pretty stressful.
Once again, I guess I'm probably, you'd have to ask the staff. I guess I'm probably a little bit more prone to get to a stressed point, but I'm typically not somebody that gets to a stressed point unless I'm watching people not giving 100%. If everybody's giving 100% and we're busy, then I'm the first one to say, hey, don't worry about it. If we're going to run an hour, we're going to run an hour. Let's just make it perfect. Don't mess up our quality. Keep the quality and safety levels at their max, and we'll run an hour if that's what it takes. We'll run an hour and 15 minutes if that's what it takes. But if we're running an hour-long ticket time average because we're packing everything to go and we have this huge influx, and we're making mistakes that are careless, or if people are moving, less than deliberately, then that'll push my stress levels. Being busy and working 7 days a week, honestly, I don't think that impacts me personally as much as it might impact other people. But that's just, everybody's different.
Yeah, and actually, I think that, I'm kind of reversing course here, but that's, I think, a really good place to be, and I'm very happy for you.
Yeah, honestly, the challenges that we're facing are a lot better than the challenges that people who were forced to close or chose to close must be facing. I do think it's funny when I get home, and I just recently discovered TikTok, as my employees will tell you, because now I'm like, hey, let's make a TikTok video, and so we'll shoot TikTok videos and put them up on the web. So anyway, I've recently discovered TikTok, which I just love because it's a great way to unwind after the day, to sit and watch 15-second videos, as you may very well know. But it's funny to see all these folks that are cooped up at home, and here we are. I go home to sleep, and then I get up and drag myself back to work in the morning. And so, yeah, my wife and I are not cooped up at home at all. We're busy. So different set of problems.
Yeah, and so just for like a little bit of a baseline, how often would you be working before?
So we have some pretty solid management here. One of those managers, though, is one of the people that he's the guy that had heart surgery a couple of years ago. So he is not coming back to work until this is blown, over one way or another, until there's either a vaccine or whatnot. But so having him out, that's a 50-hour-a-week person. So that makes a big impact right there. We have another manager who's 50 hours a week salaried as well. And then we have a person who usually works about 50% management and 50% as a kitchen employee. And she's working, I think 4 out of 5 shifts right now, she's working as a manager. So we've had to absorb all of that, or I've had to absorb that management time. Normally I would have 2 solid days off a week. I mean, we're always available if they need us, if something, falls apart, but normally I'd be off Sunday, Mondays, not for any reason other than that's just the days it works. We don't have kids in the house anymore. And I try to stay away from the restaurant. If things are going well, I won't even come here to eat. If my family wants to get food from this place, you go for it. I'll make some noodles. But so normally, I have those 2 days, and because of our solid management staff, I typically only really work maybe 2 shifts during the week where I'm the only manager here for just the daytime. Then I'll have somebody else in the evenings. And then on Fridays and Saturdays, I'm typically here all day helping out, or at least available. So normally it's pretty reasonable schedule. I have time to work in my YouTube studio, time to pursue other interests. So it is a big difference in commitment. The only day I've had off is Easter, because we closed for Easter. So,
is there anything that you wish you knew before this all was going down, as maybe a business standpoint or a family life, or anything that you wish you kind of knew, like advice for yourself?
It's a good question. I haven't thought about that. So I think that these types of scenarios, you have to remember, I haven't worked in a corporate or a school environment now in over 15 years. Now, I came from FedEx and Applebee's. So I was FedEx management and I was Applebee's management. So back then, of course, we used a lot of probably the same terminology that, people in academia used, but I don't know if it's still a thing, but best practices was a term that we used to use a lot. I don't know if it's still thrown around. I think that I would have liked to have developed or known a list of best practices for doing different things. But mostly with like point of sale, more than anything, learning about some of the other capacity that's out there. Other than that, we happen to be in a pretty good position because we are so dynamic and our staff is dynamic, and everybody has had something to contribute. As I'm sitting here doing this interview, I'm sitting in one corner of the dining room watching people walk around because we're starting to finish up from a ridiculously busy day. And everybody that's here has contributed at least something. And I think that's something that helps us out too, is that, well, we are very firm on what our finished product should look like. And most of the time we're very firm on how it should get there. When something like this comes along and people have ideas, we're very open to ideas of how to make things run better. And so that's been very good for us. All the little changes in how we put to-go food together, that type of stuff. Staffing wise, we've been able to overstaff, or thought we were overstaffing, but then again, on a day like today, even though we were overstaffed for what we anticipated we were going to do, we were understaffed for what we ended up doing. I don't know if that really answers your question. That's why I guess there's not a whole lot I would have liked that I could put my finger on that I would have liked to have known coming in, but I think that we've, from what we've experienced, we could probably turn around and write at least a list of best practices for if you have to stop serving your dine-in crowd and go to go. We could probably put together a manual on that for another business in the future, or for when this all happens again next winter.
In like broader terms, this kind of like the same question, just worded a bit differently. If you were
Yeah.
to like give advice to someone maybe in the future going through a pandemic, uh, like what advice would you want to give them, or like inside of what happened now? And this doesn't have to be like business
Yeah.
related or anything like that. Just
Don't be
anything.
embarrassed. Don't be embarrassed to be the first person to wear a mask. You know, because everybody else eventually will be. Well, at least the people that have, brain cells. That type of move. Don't wait for other people to take the lead. Um, put up that barrier to stop your guests from coming in the building before you expose your people. Be kind but be firm. Allow them to be wrong with dignity when they walk up and try and enter the building. That type of stuff. Talk openly and honest with your people. When this first rolled around, and I started talking to our people, and I told them this is going to be 12 to 18 months of dealing with this. People were shocked, but that is what I had picked up from listening to some of these specialists on TV back in February, and end of February and early March. And so my advice to people that own businesses, small businesses, or in a leadership role is be really open, really honest with your people. Talk about ways to beat whatever the challenge is, but don't be afraid to be the first one to take those precautionary steps and deliver the bad news. People are resilient, and if you're, as far as your employees, they're going to keep coming back as long as you care and take care of them. Your guests are going to keep coming back, or your customers, or whatever your business is, as long as you show them that you're taking greater steps than what they might expect you to be taking. Wearing the gloves, wearing the mask, setting up that barrier. That one guest that is offended because they can't walk into your establishment is just a drop in the bucket compared to the number of guests that are going to appreciate the fact that you took steps. Just as an example, my wife and I decided to eat like pigs and get Five Guys yesterday, right? So we hadn't had any Five Guys in a few months, and so we called in an order. I went down there to pick it up. They have curbside. And so they have curbside, but they also aren't only curbside. So I've got all these people that are streaming in and out of Five Guys, and they're not wearing masks or anything. And I couldn't believe it. And then the lady that's bringing our food out isn't wearing a mask or gloves, and she did not look like somebody who took her hygiene seriously. Not a high priority in her life. And she went to the car, and we had told them what car we were in. She went to the car next to us, and is this your food? Are you Nick Yager? And then she came over, and I had my window down, and she stuck her head in my window. And I just there's just obviously there's no this poor woman. She's probably 50 or 60. She's definitely somebody who smokes cigarettes, which is fine, whatever you want to do with your life. I'm not perfect either, but and so she's not only exposing herself to this virus, but because her bosses aren't telling her to wear a mask, to wear gloves, to not stick her head in windows, because her bosses are allowing people to come into Five Guys, which I just don't understand why. Because they're doing all this, they're part of the problem. It's a farce. So I wrote him an email, and the guy answered me. He said, I just wrote an email, not as a restaurateur, but just as a customer, and said, I'm just appalled that your people are behaving in this manner and that you aren't taking it seriously. And he wrote back, well, we can't get masks. And I wrote him, I said, there are local people who are making masks, cloth masks for businesses, and also handing out surgical masks for free. And if you need that contact information, I'd be happy to help you out. And he wrote back and basically said, thanks, but no thanks. So I'm not going to go back to Five Guys because I can't support that behavior. I'm not asking them to be perfect, but at least take some steps. Just saying that you offer curbside delivery along with letting people enter your building, you're not doing anybody any favors. You're just going to get everyone sick that way, even the people that are trying to take precautions. So.
Yeah, so it sounds like you're kind of frustrated in not only the business, but some of the customers outside that are actually going along with this as well.
Yeah, we just educate our people, and if anybody's offended, they won't come back, and that's okay. I don't mean that from an elitist point of view, but you can't make sacrifices. Going back to what you asked me, what would you advise people? Don't sacrifice your people so you don't, in the interest of not upsetting a few customers. Do the right thing for your people. And if you lose a couple customers along the way, so be it. The ones who appreciate what you're doing are going to come back tenfold. And we've got people that are tipping. We've had people come in and just hand us $200 on several occasions and just say, give this to your folks, give this to your people. We had a couple mail it in. They said, we're not leaving our house. We come there to eat every 2 weeks, normally. But we want your employees to have the tips that we would have given them. And so they sent us a check for $200 along with a letter. We give that to our people, of course. So whoever you're going to upset, you're going to win the hearts of the vast majority. It's well worth it.
So Cooper, is there anything else you want to ask?
No, I think I heard basically everything I needed to.
I just have one question. So I was poking around a little bit on the internet. I was just wondering, are you guys still making your hot sauce?
Well, I haven't had time in a while, but we do have, I think, 3 of the 4 different flavors are available right now. The Devil's Tears is sold out. But normally that's my endeavor. I'm the one that took the training on that, and I do that every few months. Just have like a day where I make hot sauces early in the morning. Do I don't know, a few gallons of each. But no, I haven't done it in a little while, but we are ramping up to actually do a few different things. I mean, one of the things that we're doing while we're closed, we're hoping to expand our capacity in the kitchen so that as this ends, whether it's, I assume that, there'll be a gradual transition into allowing people to eat in a restaurant again. When that happens, whether it's in a month or 6 months or whatever, we're going to need more kitchen space. So we're working on trying to make that happen over the next month to expand our capacity in that regard. We're also working on expanding our actual floor plan so we have more space to seat people, so we can open up with proper distancing between people when that happens. I'm not in any hurry to open up, don't get me wrong. If they want us to stay closed for another 6 months, I'm fine with it. At least as long as we can keep doing to-go and delivery. But we're trying to find those capabilities so that we can, increase our production capability and also expand our dining room. That's going to hopefully allow us to transition back to whatever the new norm is with fewer problems than if we don't do those things.
Yeah, it certainly seems like you've managed to turn a lot of the real threats into opportunities for yourself. So that's great.
I mean, it's just a choice, right? It's a simple choice. You either, I guess, lay down and just accept that things are different and wish that they weren't, or you have to embrace it. I would compare it to the Amazon phenomenon, right? So Amazon has come along and they've changed the entire retail market over the matter of a couple of years. Everything is different. I mean, Sears in our town is gone. Kmart in the Northeast closed. JCPenney should close. There's tons of empty retail space around. And so everybody that I talk to recognizes that Amazon has had an impact on retail. But you can't fight it. It is what it is. That's not going to go away. Whether it's Amazon or Walmart picks up or Wayfair or whomever, it's changed. It's different, So if you fight it, then you're going to become a dinosaur and eventually go out. If you embrace it and try to do your best to go along with it, whatever that means, then at least you've got a chance of survival, and hopefully you'll come out on the upper end of that, which so far, I think for our people, that's what we've done.
Yes, that's great to hear. And I think we're going to tie it off here, but thank you so much for taking the time. It's been great talking to you.
All right, guys. Well, thank you, and good luck with your research project. I'm sure it's some interesting stuff you're putting together from a variety of walks of life.
Yeah, then thank you again just so much for sitting down. Hopefully, 100 years from now, people will be thanking you for this.
Hey, we all got to have a legacy somehow, right?
Exactly.
All right. Take care, guys. Thank you.
You as well. Thank you.
Bye.